like to introduce to you DTM Karen Woolsey, who will be speaking about organizing your speech, 5 to 7 minutes. Karen Woolsey.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, John. John just gave my speech for me, so I'm just gonna, actually, I'm gonna tell you the secret to giving a perfect speech every time. Write this down. Thank you, John. Tell them what you're gonna tell them. Tell them. And what? The last one is? Tell them what you told them. Okay, so I was telling my husband last night that I was giving a speech on organizing your speech, and that was my basis of my speech. And I have to do that for 5 to 7 minutes. His advice was talk slow. Angela, how am I doing? 4 minutes? Okay, let's keep going. So let's elaborate on that a little bit. So I just did number 1. I told you what I'm going to tell you, how to organize your speech. Very good. So let's organize our speech by let's look at John's speech. What did John do when he was up here? He told us he's going to tell us how to choose topics. He did that great. He told us what he's going to tell us. He's going to tell us 2 things and a 3rd tip. So he told us what to look for. And then at the end, he wrapped it all up and part of my speech, and then it was wonderful, and you'll all remember it. So we're going to talk some more about your speech as we go through this. So organizing your speech is real important, because if you ramble, then no one's going to pay attention and they're going to be lost and they're not going to learn what you have to say. So organizing is the basis of your speech. Jerry taught us also a very important thing about organizing your speech last week. He told us to write out your introduction and memorize it, and write out your conclusion and memorize it, because once you have those 2, you are bookend, and you know where you started, you know where you're going, and it helps to tie it all together. It's the middle part that's the hard part though, right? So let's talk about organizing. I did the first thing you should do, and that is research. I went to TMI and asked how to organize your speech, and they have a whole speech on it. And it was boring. I'm not going to give that speech. I'm going to do as John advised and give the speech you want to hear. So I want to hear the Karen method. How does Karen organize her speech?
How does Karen organize her speech?
I have to tell you. First thing is you do an outline. And your outline is this: introduction, body, and conclusion. You start with that, and then you kind of flesh it out. This is the painful part for me. This is the part where there's could be some gnashing of teeth. There could be tears. There's usually yelling at the family. I need to get in the space. I need to kind of daydream and get kind of woozy, and you come up with a whole bunch of stuff. Then the next part is you write all that stuff down. Kind of start there, just kind of let your mind go free, and see that, like I'm doing right now. Just kind of write stuff down and kind of see what you have, and then do what John said. You edit. You cut out all the boring stuff, because basically when I'm in my room daydreaming about my speech, it kind of gets boring, except for me. But you come out with the essential parts, and that's the parts you want to remember and write down. So how do you organize those parts? Then you got to put them in order. So a real basic thing that you do, and this is what John did, is he gave you 3 points. So kind of narrow it down to 3 to 5 topics, depending on how long your speech is. John did this when he gave us his 3 things. Angelique gave us a really good speech a few weeks ago about how to be your own coach, and she gave us some points. John actually took notes and put that in the text and email to us. So I wrote that down, and I like that. That's real helpful, because it lets your audience know where you're going, and they know number 1, number 2, number 3. That's a real easy way to do things. Another thing to do is to tell stories. When you tell stories, people perk up and they listen more. That's what John did in his speech today. He told us stories about the ladies with the names on her plants. Now I have to go home and name my plants. But I think I'm kind of looking forward to that. There's things you could do, like compare and contrast. You have a point you want to make. Say you are Joe and you're going to talk about politics. So he's going to talk about politics, and he's going to compare us to all those other countries that don't have the good politics we do, and then talk about how we're so good or how we're bad. You could do that. That would be another way of organizing your speech. You could do cause and effect, like if we list everything out and talk about how, like Hal always talks about solar power. So he'd give points about solar power and then the effect on that and why we need to follow up with that. So those are other ways you can talk about your organization. And once you have all that down, you figured it out, you can start writing things down on your outline again, fill in that body part, edit out the stuff you don't like, and then it's time to write your introduction and your conclusion. You could write, sometimes I write my introduction first and I figure out my speech based on my clever introduction. You can do that, or you can kind of see what you have, and then sometimes the introduction just kind of flows. Also, your conclusion, what do you do at your conclusion?
Summarize what you said.
Yes, you summarize what you said.
Yes.
So John went back over his 3 points that he told you. I told you how my husband told me to talk slow. Obviously, I'm not following his advice. Actually, I did pretty good, Angela. Thanks for that. Green there. But we talked about start with an end in mind. You have your beginning, your conclusion. You flush out your middle part. Call to action. I want everybody to go home and write an outline. Remember, it just has to be opening, body, conclusion, and that's where you start with. And then do the boring stuff like practice and stuff. But that brings it all together. It makes it easier, and you too can speak like a pro. Thank you very much.